So let me know when it starts, and I will.
Yes, bro, you can start.
Oh, I can start. I don't know. My video is frozen, so okay. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashulakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Staptitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadama Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaveshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Haripriye वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत् शृण्वता स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवण कीर्तनः हृदयान्तस्थो हि अभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सतम् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके तद्वाग्विसर्गो जनतागविप्लवो यस्मिन् प्रतिश्लोकमबध्यवति अपि नामानि अनन्तस्य यशो निकितानि यत् शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति साधवः ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Welcome everyone for the morning Srimad Bhagavatam reading call. Today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam third canto titled The Status Quo. And we are in the 19th chapter, the killing of demon Hiranyaksha. And I'll be reading from verses 7 till 12. All of these verses have only translations and no purport from Prabhupada. So it's going to be a little challenging. Please forgive me for any offenses I may commit while speaking. Satam Nishamyatta Rathangam Agrato Vayuvastitam Padma Pulashalocanam Vilokaya Chamrasa Pariplutyendriyo Rusaswa Danta Chadam Adascha Chaswan. Translation by Pesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When the demon saw the personality of Godhead who had eyes just like lotus petals standing in position before him, armed with his Sudarshana discus, his senses were overpowered by indignation. He began to hiss like a serpent and he bit his lip in great resentment. Verse 8 Karala Dram Strascha Chakshur Ubhayam Shankashno Dhanva Iva Abhipulyate Swa Gadhaya Hatosti Ahanda Dhiram. The demon who had fearful tusks stared at the personality of Godhead as though to burn him. Springing in the air, he aimed his mace at the Lord, exclaiming at the same time, "You are slain." Text 9. Pada savyena tam sadho bhagavan yagna shukraha lilayo mishita shatro praharda vata ramasma. O saintly Vidura, when his enemy looked on the Lord in his boar form, the enjoyer of all sacrificial offerings, painfully knocked down the mace with his, playfully, not painfully, playfully knocked down the mace with his left foot, even as it came upon him with the force of a tempest. Verse 10. Adah chayudham adavasta ghatasva tvam jigishisa iti ukta sa tada bhusya tadayan vyana dad bhramshta. The Lord then said, take up your weapon and try again, eager as you are to conquer me. Challenged in these words, the demon aimed his mace at the Lord and once more loudly roared. Verse 11. Tamsa apattam vikshaya bhagavan samavistita jagrata lila paraptam gurutman iva pannagam. When the Lord saw the mace flying towards him, he stood firmly where he was and caught it with the same ease as Garuda, the king of birds, would seize a serpent. Verse number 12, the last one for today. Swa purushe praharite hata mano mahushaha nikchidda gadam diyamanam harina vigata prabaha. His valor thus frustrated, the great demon felt humiliated and he was put out of countenance. He was reluctant to take back his mace when it was offered by the personality of Godhead. So we are in the middle of the battle between the Supreme Lord Krishna and then Hiranyaksha. And this is no ordinary fight. If we don't get the full picture, the full view of what is going on, we may think this is just two ordinary beings trying to fight. Maybe they're a little extraordinary warriors fighting it out. But what we need to understand is the canvas on which this is playing out. Very often we see these reels in, social media where the earth is shown, and earth is huge. But then what happens? Earth is compared with Venus and Mercury and shown, relative sizes. Then they bring in the gas giant Jupiter. When compared to Jupiter, Jupiter is so huge, the earth is so small. Millions of earth can go and sit in the Jupiter. So huge. Now, after that, what they do? They, pan back and they are now showing us the sun. The sun is so humongous that Jupiter, is so tiny in front of it. So tiny that you can fit millions and millions of Jupiters into the sun. That is the size of the sun. Now, what did we read? In the beginning of this particular canto, we read that it is the Lord who not only creates all these planetary systems, he creates the entire universe. But then we need to remember how when Brahma saw him, in the beginning, the Lord was laying down in the causal ocean, peacefully in his yoga nidra. And Brahma was, he originated from the tiny, from the little lotus that was emanating from the Lord's abdomen. He was sitting there. What he did, he stood up and then he looked at the Lord, after he got the enlightenment, he looked at the Lord. Lord is humongous, almost the size of the universe, and now the Lord entrusts Brahma with the task of dividing the stem of the lotus, the space into three parts, the upper planetary systems, the middle, and the lower. After that, Brahma further differentiates into the 14 planetary systems. So in the 14 planetary systems, there are innumerable number of planets and stars. And of them, one is our sun and our earth. And so each one of these planets and stars, they are in an orbit. And each orbit, it is the Lord who permits them to go on that orbit, and he sets the path. We read about this, particularly when we were, I think, in the 10th or even before that, where we were 10th chapter or a little before that, the measurements of the sun, time, and all of that. So it's very clearly stated how each one of these planets and stars are in its own orbit that is permitted by the Lord. They just can't float somewhere and, remain floating. And now what has happened is this Hiranyaksha, the demon, he has dislodged Earth from its orbit that the Lord has set forth. Can you imagine the size of the demon? This is almost like a football or a soccer player having a soccer ball in his hand, correct? And then takes it and puts it into the cosmic ocean. That is what has happened. So this Hiranyaksha is no ordinary being, he's a demon, but he's also endowed with special properties. He's no ordinary demon. He used to be the close associate of the Lord, and the Lord also wanted to, have somebody with whom he can have a fight. He wanted that rasa to be satisfied. So you can imagine this towering figure standing in the middle of the planets and the stars. And, we are told that the sun is billions and billions of degrees hot, and then some of the other planets are minus so many thousands of degrees. In between that, he's standing. We are told there is no air, but, the Lord, when he wants, he can do a lot of things. And so this humongous person is standing there, and he has dislodged the earth. And what does the Lord do? He can be the full size of his, but he's not really showing his full size. He's in a particular ratio so that Hiranyaksha is looking a little diminutive in front of him, but the Lord himself is standing there, and he picked up the earth. He picked up the earth in between his tusks, and he put her back into her orbit. So that's exactly where we are. He put her back in the orbit. And when he was when the Lord was going to put the earth into her orbit, that is when Hiranyaksha starts teasing the Lord. Oh, you are covered, you're running away, and all those things. But after peacefully setting her in the orbit, the Lord turns and he starts fighting with the demon. So this is the size of the Lord and the demon. And, if we forget this and we read these verses, we'll think, oh, this is just like how we see in some of the movies, correct? Oh, there are two people, they're fighting. We do not understand the amount of force and pressure, the entire canvas behind which it is painted. So this was one aspect I wanted to bring out. But then, let us look at what the Shastras say. I was particularly looking at Ishopanishad verse 1. What does it say? Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kinchit jagatya jagam. Everything animate and inanimate, visible and invisible within this universe is wound, pervaded and controlled by the Supreme Lord Krishna. So we understand that, and here the proof is there. Not only had he already created, and then somebody came and dislodged that particular, equilibrium. What did the Lord do? He put it back into equilibrium, because he is the controller and he's all pervading. Then what it says, Tena taktena bunjita. One should accept only those, only those necessary things which are set aside as one's quota according to one's karma. One shouldn't hanker for more. One may enjoy, but with a renounce. So here it is now the comparison. One is the Supreme Lord. The other one is Hiranyaksha. And in a way, it's being said, in Kali Yuga, we are all having the demons within ourselves too. So one should accept only those things which are set aside for us. We should not hanker for more. But we know in today's world, the hankering is so much. Every minute is spent on, how do I get more? How do I get more? What is in it for me? And then finally, what does the verse say? Maghrad kasya swad dhanam. One should not try to accept the quota or wealth of others. So this is the other part. I'm not satisfied with what I earn. Now I have other things in my mind. One of the other things is, how can I get the money that somebody else has? So I want to cheat. I want to cause violence if possible, and then grab the wealth. It's not just me having wealth. I don't want anyone else to have the wealth too. So this particular verse, this is a practical example, See, what did Hiranyaksha want? Hiranyaksha was already powerful. He had already conquered all the, the higher planetary systems, the lower planetary systems, and the middle planetary systems. He was, in fact, ruling all of them. But he didn't want to end there. He wanted to challenge the Supreme Being himself. And he was thinking the Supreme Being is just somebody better than him. So he could try and he could dislodge him. And that is why, when he threw the weapon, he was saying, "You are slain." It's not that he didn't have the idea, he had the idea, but the realization was not there. He thought he could kill, the Lord. We know in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, he was always there, and the soul was also there with him, in the past, in the present, and in the future. There was never a time when he did not exist or we did not exist. However, that means that you cannot kill the soul. And that is clearly said in Bhagavad Gita, the second chapter. In spite of that, Hiranyaksha is saying, he's throwing a weapon at the Lord. It is like throwing a grass at a giant and then saying, "You're slain, you're killed." It doesn't happen, correct? So that is exactly what's going on between Hiranyaksha and the Lord. So sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, when we are in the grips of Maya, we do not understand what we are doing. We are bewildered, we are illusioned, and we'll go to any extent. And the only way we can guard ourselves is by surrendering on to, a spiritual master and try to follow the path of Krishna consciousness. Now let us look at verse 4 of Ishopanishad. Anejadekam. So, Anejada, what does it mean? The Lord is fixed in his abode, not shaking, not moving, and not fearing. So, that is how the Lord is. Even here, in two different verses, it was said, the Lord stood where he stood. He didn't even move. When you're challenged, there are two things you can do. One is you can turn your back and run away, or you can stand. When you stand, your opponent gets a little, until then the opponent thinks it's very easy, but when you stand your ground, the opponent is really, perturbed now. How do I challenge this person? Correct? But the Lord is much more than that. He is the bedrock. He is the pillar of the universe. Correct? So he's there. He's not shaking. He's not moving, and he doesn't have any fear. After all, everything around us, animate and inanimate, just like how we, earlier read, everything was created by him. Aneja Dekam. What is this Ekam? He is the one person among all entities with no equal or superior and with a form of full knowledge. So he is the one person who is above all entities and there's nobody above him. So he's all-knowing, he's powerful, he's kind, we know the 64 opulences of the Lord. So that is the strength of the Lord, and Hiranyaksha is not understanding that. Nayanat, Manuso Jaiva. And the Lord is swifter than the mind. He is very fast. You think of him, he appears. That is how he is. And that is why, when Hiranyaksha threw the weapon, the Lord casually, not even his left hand, we know in Govardhana Shila, the Lord as a little child, what does he do? He lifts the Govardhana Shila with his left hand pinky. Here, the Lord is enacting a similar thing, but in a slightly different way. This is a wrestling match that's happening. What does he do when Hiranyaksha throws his huge gada? When Hiranyaksha is that size, the gada will be at least the size of the earth. Correct? At least the size of the earth, comparable. And that sort of a mace or gada, what is he doing? With his left leg, he's just, swatting it away as if it's a fly. That is how he's handling it. And he's so fast because when we know comets and other things, every time there's in the news, oh, a big asteroid is coming. And if it comes and hits the earth, we are all extinguished. Can we do something about it? Nothing. But here the Lord can just, swift it away. That's what is being said here. Nayanad dava apnuvan purvam ashrata. So even the powerful demigods or the senses that move quickly cannot approach him. That is how fast the Lord is. Tad devitonya athyati tishtata. He surpasses all others who are running, though he is situated in one place because he is all pervading. So he is moving, he is surpassing everyone else, but he's still in the same place. And exactly the same thing is happening in this scenario. He is there and Hiranyaksha is seating, he's trying to do so many things. He's running around the Lord, jumping, showing his fist, hissing, biting his lips, throwing weapons at him. But the Lord is, come on, show me something. What do you have? Show me something. So he's standing there, not even perturbed. Tasmin apo matashrava dadati. He controls those who supply the air and rain. So if you remember, Hiranyaksha actually went around the universe. He even went to the place where Varuna was residing. And Varuna, he's also a gigantic figure. And what does he do? He says, you can go and meet the Lord. Don't challenge me. I can't, So Varuna had given up. He could not challenge Hiranyaksha. Indra could not. Indra was already conquered. So this was the state. But the Lord is the one who controls all of these demigods. And now he's being challenged by Hiranyaksha, and the Lord is taking care of Hiranyaksha in a befitting manner. Finally, we'll come to verse 6 of Ishopanishad, where Yastu Sarvani Bhutanya Atmane Evanu Pashyati. One who systematically sees everyone and everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, Sarva Bhuteshu Chatmanaha, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, Tato na vijigupsate, never hates or criticizes anyone or anything. So here Hiranyaksha is exactly the opposite. He is not only hating the Lord, he's criticizing the Lord. He's, like saying things that are so abominable of the Lord. And he's so much engrossed in his own ego. He's in illusion. He's not systematically looking at the Lord and other living entities. He's not prepared to learn. He's not prepared to surrender. His ego is so huge. So, I don't have much else to say. So I just wanted to draw this contrast. Like I'm really amazed at the canvas, the scale at which this entire, fight is going on. Even what we have seen in Star Wars and other movies are no match to what we are reading here. So I will stop there. The only way we can understand or comprehend any of the Lord's Leela is by following Srila Prabhupada's footpath, and continuing doing devotional service. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions or any discussions, please bring it up. Please forgive me if I have done any mistakes. Okay. Looks
Hare
like we don't.
Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev. Prabhu, very wonderful description of the fight and comparison. It was really nice to hear.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Yeah, as Mataji said, I mean, it's when we try to fit these things within our little brain, and it's going to be impossible to understand, and people will say, no, it's not possible, right? I mean, the kind of
Yeah.
things that are happening. I mean, of course,
Mhm.
I mean, Hiranyaksha. I mean, they're powerful. I mean, from the demon's perspective also, but how the fight is happening between them,
Mhm.
right? I mean, the whole. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, you pictured it very nicely. So it is not a small thing
Yeah.
that we can imagine within our brain. I mean, even compared to what Krishna was lifting the Govardhana hill, right, at the age of.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not going to be possible to understand, right? So I mean now
Yeah.
fighting with I mean putting the earth back in the orbit and fighting with a demon, and I mean putting the earth out of orbit by a demon, and it's not going to be a simple task or easy task. I mean
Yeah.
right, it's going to be huge. I mean huge demonic powers he had. So
Mhm.
yeah, so thank you, Prabhu. I think yeah, that comparison. So
Thank you,
yeah,
Prabhuji.
comparing with
Mhm.
Ishopanishad verses.
Yes.
Amazing it. Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't have anything else, thank you everyone. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhobhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti vaishnavebhyo.